Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Supervision Matters podcast with Rita Sever, a leadership coach, HR consultant, and author of Supervision Matters and Leading for Justice. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have Rita back on the show after her little jaunt in England. How exciting to go to England and do a little travel and get some downtime. Now she's going to talk about something that's not as downtime. It's called hidden rules. That sounds like drama can happen, but how do you go from having a good time in England to talking about hidden rules, Rita? Well, I think it sounds like you were a little calmer.
Well, yes, in one way it's a big shift, but in another way it makes perfect sense because when you're in another culture, you don't know all the hidden rules.
That's really
all
true.
The way they do things, what they mean by certain words, you don't know all that, and everybody else does. So in some ways, I just experienced that.
Well, and like meeting the Queen, and do you bow? Do you curtsy? What do you do?
I didn't have to deal with that one, but yes, that's the kind of thing. What term are you supposed to use?
Silverware gets different, doesn't it? It swaps sides, just like the side of the, driving a car in England is different than here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, wow.
Yeah. And the utensils, that's always my example of the classic hidden rules. Like you go to a fancy dinner, whether in England or here, and there's, here there'd be like 2 forks and 2 knives and a little spoon at the top of your plate. And if you've never seen that before, you don't know what you're supposed to do. So that's the classic example of a hidden rule. And in some ways, the hidden rule functions as a way to tell, are you part of our group or not? Because if you know these rules, you're one of us. But if you don't, then we don't trust you. We don't quite know what's going on. So it's a way that, I don't know how this came about, but they are used as a way to tell if you're one of us or not. You're either in or you're judged by the hidden rules.
That's gross. But it's but it can also be used in a very, very evil way, depending on the organization, right? Because it's like a hidden rule is, okay, we don't let people book into this hotel if we're in tourism because, hey, they're not married. Oh, we only take married people, or maybe the wrong color skin. And you don't want to write that down because now we'd be in apartheid. That's what South Africa did. Right? Yeah. So that became like a hidden evil. That's evil, bad.
Yeah. They are rules to exclude people, to tell, again, to sneakily determine if you're one of us or not. And sometimes, they're not so hidden in your examples.
Yeah. But there's it's just kind of everybody knows. But if you're a newcomer into an organization, how do you know? You know what I mean? Unless you've made a mistake. So they're kind of pushing you to err.
Yeah.
So that you can learn.
Well, sometimes in its best example, it's a learning opportunity, a teaching opportunity. But often they're just, again, the way somebody is judged or what they feel. If you do something wrong in a meeting, like your first day, here's the example I use for an organization. A new employee goes to a meeting and they want to make a good impression. So when the boss says, anybody have any ideas about our marketing campaign? And the new employee says, I do. And they're all excited. And suddenly there's a hush over the room because everybody else in the room knew that was a rhetorical question, that the boss was not really asking for input. And so now the boss probably looks a little less kindly on the new employee, maybe not even thinking about why. And the person already feels like, oh, I messed up. And so it's a trap in many ways.
So it's not really breeding a positive culture.
Right. And the tricky thing is, of course, that we often don't see them because once you've been in an organization for a while, you just know all those things. Like, meetings start 10 minutes after we say they're going to start. A new employee won't know that unless somebody tells them. So that's one of the things, my role is always focused on supervision. Supervisor can let somebody know some of those more obvious hidden rules.
Okay, so at least someone needs to be responsible to let someone know. And if they don't follow the hidden rules, sorry, but this is just, we shouldn't have hidden rules. Why are they hidden? I get it. I mean, is there anything positive about this?
Well, I think there are the evil ones, but there are many that are just benign, like the being late for a meeting. It
Yeah.
doesn't hurt anybody. It's just sort of the way our practice evolved, and we
Okay.
don't think about telling people about that. And then, like you said, in that kind of benign hidden rule, once they experience it, they learn it, and then it's over. And nobody's going to be shamed for showing up early for a meeting.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
there are ones that they're just sort of inadvertently there. I don't know if we could write down every rule we have, every expectation. The practice and the challenge is to uncover our own hidden rules that might be excluding people, organizational rules that are excluding people, and of course, to the extent we can, societal rules.
Okay. So there's some rules like, okay, being late to a meeting, and then, yeah, maybe sometimes it's like I look at it in wildlife or even humans, actually. It used to be, dinner's being served, the man gets to eat, then the children, and the wife gets whatever's left at the end. And in the animal kingdom, that happens like with lions, and it's the female lion that actually does most of the hunting most of the time. And she brings it in, but he's protecting their area. So it's kind of, he's like her backup. And, and she goes out, brings it back in. He starts to eat his part first, then she eats, or I think the kittens eat first. I can't remember which one, but it's the same kind of thing that us humans have done for years, and it's not written down. This is it,
Yeah, and everybody knows those rules. Those are pretty clearly established. Pondering your question about are there any good hidden rules, and I'm thinking about, I bet there are some that are protective. Like if you go, I'm thinking this as I talk it, but I'm imagining if you go out with a group of women and a man comes along that somebody knows and doesn't trust, or somebody in the group sees them do something, then there's going to be some probably hidden language. Maybe everybody puts their hand over their glass of wine all of a sudden to say, okay, this is the sign, don't leave your drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something like that. That I'm sure
don't go home with him.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The buddy system. Well, I think that was also kind of a thing too. The buddy system, it can work in a positive way in that it could even go into under promise, over deliver. So you don't so hidden rule could be, okay, somebody sells XYZ to a customer, and the hidden rule is do not tell them, hey, that we're actually going to deliver it 2 days early, because we're not 100% sure. Don't always say you can do things even though right there it looks like you can. Don't do it. Hold it, and don't show all your cards at once. So there's something,
and that probably would be spoken when it's first determined that that's going to be our practice. But you can see over time, if staff didn't turn over and somebody new came along, you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, we got to tell them that. And so maybe they'd pick it up, or maybe they'd make the mistake of promising, and that would be the one time they couldn't do it.
So everyone learns, and if they haven't been told, shouldn't there be someone within the organization that kind of says, okay, you don't, tread lightly. If they don't know, they don't know.
Right, exactly. Ideally, during orientation or onboarding, there would be an area where here's some good things for you to know. And then there's some that are hidden for a reason. Again, maybe benign, but inappropriate. Like I know one director I talked to, and she said, this feels awkward, but I need to tell my new staff that they shouldn't go to the director of finance on a Thursday or Friday because they are frantic and they will yell at them. So I'm going to tell my staff just as a heads up. And, they feel sort of awkward because it feels like they're gossiping or talking bad about somebody, but they're really saying this really will protect you and them. They don't want to deal with you on Thursday and Friday, but it's not something you're going to write down.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because it won't come up positive, but it's actually a way of everybody working around each other.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that in the restaurant industry too, because a chef, when they're moving, chefs are notorious for their language being a little bit on the hot-tempered side of things, and a newbie could come in. I remember being really young and waitressing and not experiencing someone being that horrible.
Right.
and like almost in tears, just out of shock. Like, what did I do? And then
Right.
everybody's like, yeah, that's just him, you know. And if you know at a certain hour, it starts to build up. There's this hidden thing of we all stay away at this time, you know,
Right.
but we don't put it in the book like stay away from Chef A because that's mean. And it's not that he even maybe means it. It's just one of those everybody gets along kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. And from an HR perspective, ideally that would be dealt with. But in
Okay.
the meantime, until it's dealt with, people take care of each other in that way.
Very interesting. Yeah. I've never thought about this culture kind of thing, but it can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On the negative side, could that also be like everybody knows that this guy's over flirty, so the hidden rule for women is to stick together, and that's something that HR should pick up on. If all the women like go to the other side of the room because some guy's always kind of a little handsy, you know those kind of.
Yeah. And again, this is ideally you'll build an environment where people will come and talk to you about that. But I know that for probably most organizations, that's not going to happen. So, yes, HR should pick up on it and they should address it. They should deal with it directly. But I think if they don't pick up on it, what's even worse is when there clearly is a zero tolerance written policy. We don't tolerate harassment. We don't tolerate bullying. And somebody does go to them and then nothing happens. That's the hidden rule part. We say one thing, we do another. And that has such a loud message to people of, okay, not only you can't trust them to take care of harassment, you can't trust them at all because they have one policy and they do something different.
Yeah, that's with anything, any organization. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's another sort of deeper example of a hidden rule is we're going to say the right things. The rules are going to have the right policies. How we respond to them is maybe the hidden rule part that we're going to protect management at any cost. That's the hidden rule.
This is starting to sound like politics. Well, it does get political.
Politics, for sure. Politics is played a lot in organizations.
And so is HR's role is to like almost not allow it, right? Is to
Yeah, certainly HR's role is to follow the policy, follow the law, follow the policy, but even more proactively, like I said, train people so you're safe, that you will hear about incidents, train people about how to respond when that happens, train people so the perpetrators know that that's not going to be tolerated.
I've been in the position on the sales side of things where salespeople have ganged up against other salespeople and stolen deals and kind of things like that. And some of them, and watched as the management thought this was fantastic because now that it's more competitive. It was terrible on the customer side. It was terrible. And it was not a fun place. It wasn't, should be supporting each other. And salespeople that befriended each other, talk about hidden rules. It was like if you knew you needed someone to come in and help you close a big deal. I'm talking about like the items were in the tens of thousands. And sometimes you had to do what we called a TO, which is a turnover the sale, where you can tell you're not doing as good a job. It's not quite connecting, but you've initiated, there's definitely a sale about to be made, and you go get somebody else. Sometimes it's a sales manager or the manager, but it's going to be someone you like and trust because you're splitting the commission. So you may have a secret hidden code where you look at them and they know, oh, I'm supposed to go in. So it's all natural. The customer feels natural, but you have to watch out because if the other salespeople, and this happens in car dealerships too, if the other salespeople already see you're starting to flail, I mean, you have a sign of flailing, right? And that's FLAI, flailing a little bit. They're going to start hovering around like sharks, which is not good for the company, but the company wants someone to go in there and close a deal. I know this sounds really gross to people, but this is reality. Honestly, I think the internet's changed things a bit on big item sales, but so you do get a little clicky because you want to share your money with the people you like. And that is a hidden rule for sure.
Yeah, it's another way of quietly making agreements and rules. I think one of the parallel to what you're talking about is, again, when there's a written rule, but it doesn't match the practice. When a company says we value teamwork, We want everybody to be treated fairly. Performance on teamwork will be observed and measured. Then when evaluations and raises come out, who gets the raises? The backstabbers, the ones who stole the business from other people. So saying one thing and doing something else. That just breaks trust and morale so quickly. Again, the hidden rule is that we don't mean what we put in writing.
Man, this is like politics. It really is. I'm just thinking about all those kind of hidden deals that are made. Like you could be the new person walking in, and there could be the hidden rule of you're the token person in a company and you don't know. You're the token filling in the blanks, and you're not going to get anywhere ahead because the buddy system has already been put in place and no one's breaking the buddy system because it goes all the way to the top. And that company, I don't think they last very long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or what happens to an HR person in the middle of this?
Right. Well, often there isn't an HR person in that kind of situation.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, this is some fun dynamics. So, so basically keep your eyes and ears open and be perceptive. For the employee, what would you give an advice to when you see that? Is especially if you're new, if you're seeing stuff like that, and you're always nervous to go and open your mouth because you may not even want to trust the HR person.
Right. Yeah. And so it really is bigger than an individual response. Individuals can do something, they can name it, they can recognize it. Partly recognizing it will help you feel less crazy. Why am I in trouble? Because I followed the open door policy. There's a written open door policy that says, bring any concerns or complaints to us and we will try to solve it. But the hidden rule is that it's true, we want to hear about it, but the hidden rule is that you are now going to be labeled a complainer. You're not a team player because you raised this issue up. So, that's the kind of thing that you learn as you do it, and then you figure out how to respond. I want to just talk for a minute about with some of the ones that aren't this clear cut of going against policies, but more the inadvertent one. We don't even know we're doing them. And these are things like, we have a policy, we hire the best person for the job, which of course is a great policy. The hidden rule part is, what do we mean by the best person for the job? And if we mean somebody who looks like us, somebody who has the highest degree, somebody who goes to the best schools, somebody who knows somebody, all of those are sort of subjective factors that aren't really about hiring the best person for this particular job. And we just do that without even talking about how do we determine who's the best person for the job? Some of the ways to hear those kind of hidden rules are, and specifically around hiring, if you hear something like, I just felt comfortable with them. My intuition said they would fit in best. If I heard that from a manager when I was HR director, I would say, well, let's talk about that. Tell me what felt comfortable. And what about this person who looks stronger on paper? Why did you not feel comfortable with them? And so sometimes that fleshes out those subjective factors. In other kinds of examples, like as a supervisor, what you might hear when there's a hidden rule is, well, I shouldn't have to tell them that. That's just common sense. Or they should have known that. Those are all signs that you expect people to know and think like you do. And if somebody comes from a different culture, a different class, sometimes even a different gender, they may not think the way you do. So then we have to catch ourselves. And those are some of the ways you can hear that, I just talked about common sense. I need to back up and think about, what do I mean by that? Because it's something we throw around so much. It's usually culturally based and it's tricky.
And now,
to me, it doesn't mean it is to you.
Well, when you look at all the way the life is right now, the workforce is changing so much. And even when you're looking at people working remotely and how sometimes you're not getting the full picture that way when you're not in an office setting. But then there's all the communications, there's the pronouns, there's all of this kind of stuff where there's hidden rules around that even. And if you don't know, there's that kind of culture that needs to be, I think, open so everybody knows how to handle things. I think we're in a very sensitive time right now.
Right. So the more we can uncover the hidden rules related to this topic and then talk about them and double check ourselves. Are we doing this the way we want to be doing it? Are we in alignment with our mission and our values? Or are we saying one thing and doing another? That's the biggest problem with hidden rules, as well as the rules that we sort of inherit from the dominant culture and tend to exclude people, often, again, sometimes on purpose, sometimes just by practicing what's always been done.
Yeah. So it becomes a rule, even though it's just a habit.
Right. Exactly. And
Oh,
so
that's
getting back
dangerous.
to your question, what do you do if you find one of these? I think pointing it out, being curious, and asking questions. So I know, a simple one. I noticed that the meeting, it said it started at 10 and we're starting at 10:15. Is that what we usually do? You're not challenging anybody or shaming them, but you're pointing it out. If I was an HR director, I might look at our data and say, I noticed that over the past 3 years, we hired 25 people of color. Only 3 of them stuck with us for more than a year. Can we talk about what's going on there?
Okay. Yeah, that's it. And I think there's also just silly little rules that, it's like whenever an office reaches some goal, there's like a bonus or something. But it's not written down because what if they can't do it? But it's become a culture. But even still, if it's not written down and everyone expects a bonus and the bonus cannot be had, it gets wonky, doesn't it?
Yes. So that's an example where it would be better to have it written out and say, assuming there is enough money in the budget to do this. And it's still, even with it written down, people are still going to obviously be disappointed, but at least there's something to stand on then.
So this is fascinating.
And it's deep because it has deep repercussions and it's not something you can fix quickly. Something that you can just go, okay, that's what we're doing. Let's change it. Some of them are like that, but most of them are harder to shift because, again, we don't even talk about them. So first we have to talk about them. Then we have to figure out what to do with them. And that takes time and energy and agreement.
And then also, if you're the person speaking up, I know there's that tendency to say, maybe I just don't know anything or I'm the stupid one on the block. I don't put yourself down in those situations. Don't we have to be I know we've touched on this in other conversations, but especially people go, is it just me? Or is it this way? Or, there's certain you can kind of get away with that, I think. Is it just me seeing this or, but I would just go, I just noticed this. I haven't noticed this before. I'm new. I want to be able to do whatever I'm supposed to do to have I want to do my best.
Perfect. Yeah, I noticed this and then be curious. Is this the way we always do it? Yeah, that's a great way to open the door.
Yeah.
And as an individual, again, if you're a supervisor or even a coworker, when one comes up, fill somebody in. It can be casual. It can be, if you notice that they didn't know something that you thought everybody knew.
Well, it's valuable, and I think for new people, especially, the hidden rules are the thing. But sometimes you may just have let things go by, and then one day you sit up and go, this isn't that cool.
Right. Yeah.
Because we tend to be so focused on what we're doing. But yeah, so you go to the HR person. That's the main thing. But the HR needs to be aware. So they're always watching company culture, what's going on.
Well, hopefully all the managers are. But yes, I often think of HR as in its best form, it's the guardian of culture. So they would be watching to help intentionally build the culture and make sure that people fit into the culture that actually is, not the idealized. Hopefully they're the same thing.
I remember being in a company, and this is such a lame little rule, but there was no rule to it. But every Friday, everyone came in with their company T-shirt, had a collar on it, but it was casual Friday.
Right.
No one tells me I go to work in, corporate outfit. I'm the only one in the corporate outfit. So it wasn't a big deal at all. But it was like, it would have been nice to have known.
Exactly. That's a great...
I rushed to get dry clean does anybody dry clean anymore? Back in those days. But, it would have saved me a bunch of time.
Yeah. And
And
you
it
wouldn't
feels
have
mean.
felt that awkwardness of, oh,
Nobody cared to tell me.
right.
It's mean.
Again, it's casual. It doesn't, I mean, it seems minor, but it's a way to say you're not one of us, at least not yet.
Yeah. I think that the team part, I think companies that are successful are when companies understand to work as a team towards
Right.
a goal, and that you have different, it's like a sports game. You know, you have a goalie, you have the person kicking things. I should never use sports as a kind of metaphor.
Usually they kick balls.
Yeah, there's something, they kick something over there, whack something, and there's that person that really puts it in net thing.
Right.
So yeah, and the hidden rule is never put me into a sports game of any unless you want me to just cheer on the sideline. That's
Right.
but that's the thing. It's the team part of it. Not everyone's going to always get along, but those hidden rules can break what could be a really fabulous team where, like I was saying, the salespeople, stealing
Right.
each other's deals and stuff like that. It became a very nasty competitive, which, well, if it was a team kind of thing, a little competition goes a long way, but friendly, positive competition is very good. It makes you do the best. But when it gets this nasty kind of part, I had a boss that put down his manager.
Huh.
And pitted me against my own sales manager.
That's awful. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
it was funny because the sales manager was mean, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
see, but
there's
this, here we
another
go.
factor. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's a good point that in its worst iteration, hidden rules can undermine the culture and the values of the organization. I think that can sort of summarize everything we've been talking about,
Mhm.
that you want to be as transparent as you can and in alignment so that you don't inadvertently undermine what you're trying to do.
Good point. Good point. Always good points, Rita. I love
Oh,
it.
good to talk to you.
You too, I know. And so everyone stay tuned. Rita's here every single month, keeping us on our toes. I hear every third Friday, so keep up with her at supervisionmatters.com. And don't forget her books. I think especially Leading for Justice is very timely, and also Supervision Matters. So thank you so much, Rita. Looking forward to next month. I wonder what you were going to talk what we're going
I
to do
haven't
now.
peeked either. We'll see.
Woohoo.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Big Blend Radio's Supervision Matters podcast with Rita Sever. Keep up with Rita at supervisionmatters.com and listen to new episodes every third Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on bigblendradio.com.